record myself, I hope, because, let's see if it doesn't. I'm hoping that I can, yes. The reason why I volunteered to speak today is because I have sort of an article due for one of the online magazines of the organization I've been involved with called the Inner Peace Movement International. And today is what, the 9th? Right, so it's due today. So anyway, I've been thinking about what I wanted to write about, and I actually called up a person and semi-interviewed her. But let me tell you the story. Some of you remember my mother, who came to this church until her death in 2005.
Yep.
And one of the things that I really admired about my mother is that she was a very friendly person. And she would make best friends with the person who was standing ahead of her in the grocery store line by the time they got out the door. And I've always been way more reserved, but I always admired that in her. And I was thinking recently about how could I sort of step out of my comfort zone even more than I have already, in really communicating to others from a spiritual point of view. And I decided that one of my associates, who is currently helping her mother in Florida, who's had an injury or needs rehabilitation or illness, I'm not exactly sure of the details. But anyway, she's down there from Rhode Island, I believe. And I called her up because we've been talking a little bit, possibly doing some spiritual programs together. And I realized that this person had the same attributes as my mom. That she had that real ability to meet people and have a real meaningful conversation. I think you all know the difference between, oh, how's the weather, versus, really talking about things that strike people in that sort of heart area. So anyway, my friend's name is, why can't I think of it now? Sheila. So I called up Sheila, and she called me back like at 7:30 in the morning, and I didn't get a chance to really record her conversation. But I do remember some of the details that she shared with me, how she got from like point A to being able to really talk to people she didn't know, and actually even set maybe up a time with them to even share more deeply. And then what she does, some of the same things that I do. I do share with people how to communicate with their spiritual guidance and how to use that in their daily life. We might call the word guidance as angels or whatever term, but we really do have that resource. So anyway, I asked Sheila how she got from maybe where she was in the past to how she is so much more outgoing. And she said, well, the first thing she had to do was practice. And it wasn't easy. That she has the same kind of training that I did. I think we're probably similar ages. How many of you were taught stranger danger when you were a little kid? Right? Now, my parents had a summer resort in northern Wisconsin. So we really truly did have strangers coming to our resort all the time. And I can remember my father, there was some little girl who was very shy and hanging on behind her mother's skirt or whatever. And my father was saying, boy, I wish that Kathleen was like that. And I necessarily wasn't, but I did get the message that he wanted me to be a little bit more reserved. He even set up an imaginary line in our property from where our house was to where the cabins were. And I wasn't supposed to be crossing that line and bother the cabin people. So I got a lot of training on holding back in communication. So anyway, Sheila shared that she had that same kind of training and that she had to make the decision to really practice. And then the other thing she shared is that she really had to discern, what was her motive? What's her intent? If she's going to come across, and we all come across people all the time. The person who sells us gas, the person who helps in her case, her mother with rehabilitation. All these different individuals, all a soul just like us, all on the same kind of spiritual journey. And so she really discerned that one of her intents is to really discern what is the need of this person. How many of you know that there's a real difference between your wants and your needs? Well, wants is I might really want a BMW, but what I really need is just basic transportation. You know, and from a spiritual point of view, one of our basic needs, and that's why I chose this topic when I got the communication that Lyndon wasn't able to talk. I was already tuning into, it's all about self-esteem. And one of the things that my friend Sheila said was it's really learning how to just really love. You know, if you can just really get to that soul part, that essence of everyone, they recognize that in you. And it sort of reminded me when I was a student becoming a physical therapist, one of the requirements we do, it's an internship, but it's called an affiliation. And I went to Nashville, Tennessee, and to Vanderbilt. And one of the people that was there had been a physical therapist a really long time. She used to call her patients honey and baby and, you know, all these different things. And I don't know how much of that was, I don't want to say it, how much of that was a Southern thing, because I was from Wisconsin, which is definitely not Southern. And I, in the time, really sort of judged that. And I thought, well, I'm never going to be like that. I'm not going to be that, you know, really, that's a good word, familiar. Well, I notice now I do that all the time. You know, I'm asking my patient, she has aphasia, and not only does she have aphasia in her ability to communicate words, but she has the inability to understand what you're asking her. And I'm going, no baby, move this way. You know, things like that. And she's only a few years older than me. But I know my grandson, who's almost 2, would immediately say, I'm not a baby. But the bottom line, that's what I see that my mom had and that my friend Sheila had, was that, you know, just really true love. And it's really, that's what it's all about. And I could probably stop right now. But we watched a wonderful movie last night that was all about serendipity. And it was all about how the universe sort of organized us into a path maybe that we're not even aware of. When I was leaving last night, there was a book that had been sitting by the little desk over there, and it's been sitting there a long time. I don't know how long for sure, but a bit. And I looked at it and I thought, the self-esteem workbook. Well, that's a lot like what Sheila's talking about. Maybe I'll take that home and I can organize my talk, my writing that I'm going to, you know, share for this online magazine about, you know, sort of going beyond my comfort zone and really making that spiritual connection with people. So I took it home, and I hadn't even gotten very far when I get a text from Gloria saying that Linda's not able to speak, and I immediately decided, well, the best way to really organize my thoughts to be able to write this, and it needs to be succinct, it doesn't need to be pages, about what Sheila shared and the steps to become like my mother, was to really, you know, study self-esteem a little bit. So as I went through, and I immediately volunteered to talk today. So as I went through this, I was really, really thrilled that I had made the decision to pick up this book. And first of all, it's not mine. It belongs to the church. It's been here a bit. It was originally, came out in 1993. It was originally published as Building Self-Esteem. And it's actually a workbook that's part of a college course on self-esteem. I know I would have liked to take that in college. Now, some of the cool stuff I did take in college besides my physical therapy curriculum was camp craft, canoeing, relaxation training. I found out that I didn't have to pay any more money and I could still take more credits. So I think I did synchronized swim, but I might have had to drop out of it because otherwise I was going to be failing. But the bottom line was, I just thought this was really a cool thing. And so some of the pages that I've given you are pages from this book. And there's a lot more research in here that I'm keeping my eye on the clock because I don't want anybody what was it, Larry's talk was all about, he made sure that everybody got out early, so he was very popular as a minister. So they all got to their destinations quickly. But, so one of the things that the author does is he defines what is self-esteem. In principle, self-esteem is generally stable, but it can fluctuate from day to day, according to thought patterns, and its definition is, it is a realistic, appreciative opinion of oneself, and realistic means accurate and honest. Appreciative implies positive feelings and liking. Some speak of high and low self-esteem, but that makes self-esteem then feel more like a numbers game that's competitive and comparative. It's preferable to say that people possess self-esteem when they have a realistic and appreciative opinion of themselves. And they basically say that self-esteem sits squarely between self-defeating shame and self-defeating pride. You know, it's always that too much of a good thing type of thing. So we can have humility, but if we start to flip way over to that as, you know, into self-defeating shame, then we're just definitely going to undermine our self-esteem. And if we flip way over into we're feeling greater than everybody, that's that self-defeating pride. It's the same thing. The bottom line is there's no greater than less than. We all have tremendous potential in this area. Some of the concepts that relate to self-esteem. Now this is somewhat of a scientific study that was done on self-esteem and got created into a college course, but I imagine that they're pretty true today. Is identity. We all have that real sense of our identity. But that key word appreciate is really important. Really learning how to really appreciate and have gratefulness for ourselves and our situation. Acceptance is huge. Really learning how to sort of go with the flow of things and to have that acceptance of things that come to us, even the things that we may judge as not thinking it's so good for us. Self-confidence is part of it. Pride is again part of it. And humility is part of it. So I gave you a page, and basically they talked about in this college course, the freshmen or whoever, what made it in the juniors, I don't know. But the people who took the course actually took sort of like beginning assessments of their own self-esteem and all of that. And I didn't really know how they correlated. But the first page I gave you is called The Foundations of Self-Esteem. And if you'll look, it's sort of like building blocks. So unconditional worth is number one. To really build self-esteem, you have to have that. And then that sequence is crucial. So then after unconditional worth, then comes love. And then comes growing. And then comes self-esteem. So mainly what we're going to be working with is mostly unconditional worth today and a little bit about love. But what I asked you to do before you turn to the page to number 2, in those numbers from 1 to 7, basically the universe picked out some numbers of maybe some core beliefs that aren't really serving you anymore. I liked how the author called them, instead of judging them, let me see, I got these out of sequence. Examining unproductive core beliefs. So whatever numbers, you can now transpose them so you can circle on your piece of paper any of the numbers that you got. Does anybody need any more time? Or take time to go through those. Those are sort of your personal information. But there's some that stand out really hard for me. Like work should be hard and in some way unpleasant. My family taught us if it wasn't hard, it wasn't worth it. Anybody had that?
Yep.
I used to go around and make things hard so it'd be worth it. Until I learned that that really wasn't serving me. There's another one in there that there's a perfect solution and I must find it. So I was really more or less taught that I should strive for perfection. Well, the bottom line, there isn't any perfection. Nobody has it. You know, it's a myth. Our advertising wants to give us that feeling that, you know, if I just bought that new makeup or that gizmo or gadget or whatever. Last night, the woman who was the protagonist in the story, somebody asked her what she did and she said mind control. And then the younger woman who was talking to her said, well, what do you mean? She said, I'm in advertising. You know, so we're really taught that there is something called perfection. We're taught to strive. So I thought that just looking at those unproductive core beliefs and just seeing, well, how do those fit in my life? You know, I must admit, I didn't sit down and figure out which of the 17 that I have, but I might do that in the future when I'm not thinking about them, so I don't know which one goes with which number. All right, now, I want to move on a bit because there's a lot of really good stuff. One of the things that was created and copied down in this book is called Howard's Laws of Human Worth. And somebody named Claudia Howard wrote about these in 1992. All have infinite internal, external, and unconditional worth as a person. All have equal worth as people. Worth is not comparative or competitive. Although you may be better at sports, academics, or business, you might be better in social skills. We all have equal worth as human beings. Externals neither add nor diminish worth. And externals include things like money, looks, performance, achievements. These only increase one's market or social worth. Worth as a person, however, is infinite and unchanging. It's more or less your birthright. You came in with self-worth. Worth is stable and never in jeopardy, even if someone rejects you. And worth doesn't have to be earned or proved. It already exists. Just learn to recognize, accept, and appreciate it. So I just felt like that was a really good way to look at it. Now, some of the other things I want to bring out is I gave you a skill building activity. So your page number 3, you can read the top part if you want to, but the bottom part of page 3 and all of page 4 is some take-home assignment. And basically what it's saying is sit in a quiet place, well supported in a chair where you'll be comfortable for about 20 minutes. Then close your eyes, take a couple deep breaths and relax. Try to relax as deeply as you can. Prepare yourself for and expect a pleasant experience. Open your eyes long enough to read the first statement. Then close your eyes and concentrate on that statement. Repeat it to yourself 3 times slowly, allowing yourself to feel as though that statement were completely accurate. You might wish to imagine yourself in a situation actually thinking and believing that statement. Use all of your senses to experience the situation. Don't worry if a statement doesn't seem to apply to you yet. Just think of this as a patient practice in creating a new mental habit. Don't allow negative or pessimistic thoughts to distract you or undermine your progress. Accept what actually happens without demanding perfection. If a statement doesn't feel right, bypass it and return to it later. Or modify it so it does right, keeping it positive 3. And then step 3 is to go to each statement listed, and you have 23 of those. And they say that the entire exercise takes about 20 minutes. We're not going to do it here. But this is your homework, if you'd like. It's recommended that you repeat this activity every day consecutively for 6 days. Each day after doing this activity, notice how you feel. Many notice that with practice, thoughts begin to feel more and more comfortable, becoming as trusted friends. Thoughts that do not become comfortable within 6 days will likely become so when you return to them. He's talking about the programs in, because people actually work through this whole workbook. So you have that homework. Now, I'm going to go just a little bit further. And like I said, I really had to hold myself back from sharing with you the whole book. But let's move into love a little bit, and we will do an exercise together. And the purpose of this 5-step exercise is to find love, your core self, or your inner child. Okay. So I want you to sit quietly and comfortably. You don't need your papers now. And you're going to try to take a couple of deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And imagine yourself as an infant surrounded by loving people. These can be the loving people you identify with, or maybe if you didn't have that loving situation, you can create them. Create one male and one female. You can imagine them as your parents, or how you would have liked your parents to have been. They can be a composite of people that you've known and loved, who made you feel like somebody you were. Now, as an infant, you need to hear the words that I'm going to share with you. Imagine yourself hearing the statements below, first from a male voice, and then from a female voice. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to the world. Welcome to our family and home. We're so glad you're a boy. We're so glad you're a girl. You're beautiful. We want to be near you, to hold you, and to love you. Sometimes you'll feel joy and laughter, sometimes sadness and pain and anger and worry. All these feelings are okay with us. We'll be here for you. We'll give you all the time you need to get your needs met. It's okay to wander and separate and explore and experiment. We won't leave you. You might repeat to yourself some of those words. Imagine the speakers cradling you, loving you, gently gazing on you with love as you respond to these feelings. Now you can practice this type of imagery. Imagine the words that you would like to have heard. It just takes a few minutes every day. It's recommended that you do it for 2 consecutive days. Now just take a moment to see how you feel. Tune into your feelings. And then come back slowly. And then go ahead and open your eyes. Now at this time I'm not going to give you time to share either, but since we're really good at the coffee hour, and hopefully somebody's making coffee if you want some, I'm not the coffee maker. but you can share your experience. But it's recommended by the author, and I've heard this before, is find one of the pictures of you as a little kid. And imagine cherishing that little kid of you. Because that inner child is in you already and is still with you. And you can nurture it and love it. And it can really help you to expand in your love for yourself and others. And real quickly, I don't want to go into big detail, but I really like this. And it talked about cultivating body appreciation. And it had you go from really being aware of all the magnificence that we have. Like one of the statements is, the heart brings to life as every cell. Weighing on 11 ounces, this magnificent muscle tirelessly pumps 3,000 gallons of blood each day, beating 2.5 billion times over a course of a lifetime. A pace that would tire other muscles in minutes. The heart actually is in 2 pumps side by side. And it just has you go through your whole body and the tremendous magnificence of this tool that you chose. That's your anchor here on planet Earth. And what the author really recommends, which I wanted to bring out, is just maybe a few times a day, look at that mirror and appreciate something that is right about you. Oh, Kathleen, I really like those glasses. I'm really pleased with how my haircut is working out for me, or whatever. We're so used to looking and being critical. It's just a way to switch it up. So basically, I just wanted to share that it's all about love. We already know all of that. It's really a tremendous unity principle from some of the founders, is that God didn't make no junk. That we all are that. We have that tremendous legacy with that God within. I'm going to be going away in July. I am offering some spiritual programs. I have some flyers in the back, as I mentioned. But about later July, one of the organizations I'm involved in, I have access to many, many spiritual products. And one product that I'm going to offer in the Albany area is called Love, My True Reality. And it's a 3-hour seminar that just helps the participant to really move up to that next level of loving themselves and others. And I want to thank you for the opportunity of studying this book and getting my project, which is being created as we speak, off to the publisher. Thank you. All right.